Thorpe bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. What are we talking about this morning? Well, state of Colorado refusing to work with the federal government with regards to investigating where these sponsors of unaccompanied minors, these are kids that showed up at the border, right? And unaccompanied alien children, UACs, they show up with nobody. And then they get put with a sponsor. Oftentimes it's a family member. They originally register with the government, but then there's not a lot of follow-up that's taken place since then. And in fact, roughly 300,000 of these kids have never shown up for their court dates or court appearances. So the Trump administration under HHS and the Office of Refugee Resettlement trying to figure out where these kids are. So they're asking the state to help. Well, Jared Polis originally saying no, and then yes. But employees are now suing the governor, going, if you make us work with ICE, you're making us violate the law that you signed, Governor. So what's going on here? Let's go to the phone lines. Mary, Wyoming. What are your thoughts on all this? Mary, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. My thoughts are that Trump, during his first presidency, he required the unaccompanied children, when they were going with the sponsor, they had to do a DNA test to make sure that they were related, if that's what they said.
Yep.
They found a lot of sex trafficking issues at that time, that these other people were not who they said they were. Biden, for 4 years, no tests. They were just, if the person said that they were related, they went with the person. So I think that there is a large issue regarding the children and who they're with. And then the thing regarding the list, the need for the list, the feds to get it, they gave out the money. The locals are the ones that have the information, the states. So in other words, there was like blocks of money would go for, so that they are getting the benefits. That is, the states have that information, not the feds.
But Mary, when they arrive in the country, when you're talking about the no DNA test and letting them go, they're on a list. When they show up
yes,
and
you're
they
right.
present, so there is a master list that is held by the feds,
but it's old and not updated.
I know my Christmas list changes like by 5% every year or something like that.
I know, but you're not the federal government, nor do you have access to all the personal information.
I know, and that's like a list of like 100 people.
I know, but you don't have access to all the personal information. The federal government can find out where you're
Bill,
living.
You're one of the ones that want to have, in other words, we have a budget issue. And in other words, and you make it very expensive for every single one of these the illegals having to have processing. In other words, you want them to go through all the effort. They don't have the manpower.
Right, and I think we just talked about air traffic controllers using Windows 95.
But hang on. Your argument isn't we need to skip habeas corpus because we don't have enough money. That can't be your argument, right, Mary? I mean, I'm hearing you wrong, aren't I?
No. My problem is that
we don't have the money.
They violated our laws, and even now, the ones that they're supposed to, one of the agreements for them to get the children and get the benefits was that they were to go ahead and get them to their hearing. 300,000, and they didn't get to the hearing. They're, again, violating the law, and nothing ever happens to them.
I know, and here's the thing, Mary, is why you're sitting there saying they violated the law. Is that an incentive for them to show up or have their information then brought to ICE? Because if they're violating the law, aren't they on Tom Homan and Donald Trump's list for deportation? Doesn't that?
Why not?
Doesn't that make?
Well,
Mary,
because they get an experience in our country, they get to remain.
No, Mary.
In other words, yes, it is.
Mary.
If they've had a positive experience, they have friends, they get to go to school, etc. By God, they should be citizens. They should remain in this country.
Mary, I'm not arguing about citizenship in this case. What I'm arguing about is the fact that the feds have this information and have access to the information. And if these people are disappearing and trafficking these kids, chances are they don't have information from the state either. They're not going to be signing up and making sure that the state knows who they are and the feds don't if they're involved in the crimes. And exactly your statement just a second ago about this is another law they've broken. That is precisely the argument that the state employees are making as to why not to share the information with ICE, because
they'd have to go home.
It's a mechanism for deportation.
Because they have to go home.
Yes, it's all about keeping these people in the country. That's why the state refuses to work.
But the Fed's argument is we want to make sure these kids are safe. But according to what I'm hearing from both Jeff and Mary,
I want them safe. I want them safe, but I want them home.
Yeah,
and this is not their home.
Yep,
and we're willing to risk
because they've stayed here for years. That does not make it their home.
And
They're
we're
not
willing
our
to risk
citizens.
their safety in order to protect them from deportation, I guess, which is just crazy to me. Mary, I sure appreciate the call.
Yeah, thanks,
Great
Mary.
Conversation. Mary's line will be open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's now check in with news and comment. Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, Tuesday, 57 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 88 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
And we're going to flood the zone. I've said for a month, sanctuary cities, you don't want us to arrest these bad guys that you just listed out. We could arrest them in the safety and security of the county jail, but they won't let us into jail.
Border Czar Tom Holman, you listening, mayors?
They release them into the community, which means we got to send a whole bunch of teams in the community to find this dangerous person that don't want to be found. So sanctuary cities are going to get exactly what they don't want. More officers in the communities and more officers in worksite. We can't arrest them in jail or arrest them in the community. If we can't arrest them in the community, we're going to increase worksite enforcement operation. We're going to flood the zone. And based on what LA's doing right now, we're going to continue to flood the zones. We're going to be there tonight. We're going to be there tomorrow. We're going to be there every day in the next 4 years, arresting public safety threat illegal aliens. We're not going to apologize for doing it.
Florida
Gotta
Congresswoman.
Love it, man.
Let's go.
Pedal to the
go
metal,
hit somebody.
Baby.
So you're saying it doesn't need the list? Okay.
No, we're going to have to go flood the community now.
Yeah.
So, gosh, it would have been easier to have a list.
Yeah, just give us a list.
Right.
Doesn't need the list. Okay.
Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna.
I guess we'd rather have feds in the streets than a list.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
We need one of those in Denver.
There we go.
They'd still be there if they had the list because they'd have to come get them. Just saying.
Here's Anna Paulina Luna on the paid rioters in L.A. creating all the chaos.
Just found a really great deep dive here from the Data Republican on X. So who is behind all these crazy riots in LA and that will be across the nation? Just like remember in the Summer of Love with BLM, remember who's organizing all that stuff? With this specifically is being funded by an individual by the name of Neville Singham, who actually made his money by pushing communist Chinese propaganda, became a billionaire doing it. He's now funding, and the guy behind all of these protests was also behind and tied to the protests at Columbia University, pushing all of that BS, if you don't remember.
Lefty Loon Neville Singham is the guy.
They're all the same people. I can tell you this for a fact because I go down there and talk to them. And it's always the same Antifa folks.
Them well.
And now I just kind of joke around with them. I'm like, hey, and they'll never give me their names. There's 3 of them that are always together, so I call them Curly, Mo, and Larry. Larry, Curly, and Mo. Because they hide their faces and they yell curse words at me, but I know who they are because they have tattoos near their eyes, and so you can kind of see, you can kind of identify them that way. But they're all the same people, and it just rotates through whatever someone's writing a check for them to show up and protest. So it could be Israel one day, it could be immigration the next day, it could be capitalism the next day, or it could be a pro-life rally. They're doing a counter pro-life rally. I mean, that's how they get paid. They just yell at people, which isn't much different than what I get paid.
It's probably a lot of our money also, taxpayer money.
Yeah, right. Funded through these nonprofits. There's no taxpayer funding here.
Exactly. Here's more of Anna Paulina Luna.
And also, too, if you actually look at the social organization that's putting out these flyers, it's the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is, and I kid you not, the actual Communist Party. So they're using Hispanics, they're using illegal immigrants, they're trying to hype people up thinking that they care, but they don't care. If they did, they would stop illegal immigration. Obama deported people. Why all of a sudden now? It's political.
Hey, here's DJT.
If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up.
Oh, wait a minute. That's Barry.
The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century. And to those members of Congress who question my authority to make our immigration system work better, or question the wisdom of me acting where Congress has failed, I have one answer. Pass a bill.
The audio you hear in the background
So good.
are the deportations. It is so good. He's right in front of all the video of the people being deported. Oh my goodness. All right, there's a website called nokings.org. It has all the plans for the commies and paid rioters to create the chaos and violence in the streets this week and into this weekend on Flag Day across the country. And they have a map of the U.S. where they plan to raise hell, including Colorado, right there on the map. Right there, that rectangle right there in the middle.
Flag Day.
Flag Day.
And it's Saturday. It's in June. It's this Saturday. It's going to be a beautiful day.
Yep.
Most people
Perfect
taking
for
their
them.
kids to a pool, go play some golf, play a little tennis, have some fun with the family, go for a hike, or
Or, hey, got another option for you.
go
20
downtown.
locations up and down the Front Range, just for you.
Right. So when I went down to the Day Without an Immigrant protest, and it was all white people and one mariachi band.
That is awesome, man.
Just remember who you're going to be marching with. They'll be college educated. They'll have interesting hair colors, nose rings.
A lot of white hair. No.
Yeah, a lot of boomers. There will be a lot of boomers.
A lot of mustaches.
There will be a lot of boomers. I don't think you're going to see black people, Hispanic people, or Asian people at this protest.
No, I doubt that. A lot of wire-framed circular glasses. I've seen a lot of those in your videos.
I will just never forget going to a Day Without an Immigrant, and it was all white people in a mariachi band.
That is great.
That is the best image of what these things are.
Yeah, that is perfect. I love it. All righty. You heard the sound there. The terrorist throwing rocks at police and federal vehicles has been identified as 40-year-old Elpidio Reyna. Investigators searching for him. I'm sure he earned some dirty cash. He's charged with assault and faces up to 8 years in prison. And the FBI offering a $50,000 award for info leading to his capture.
That's him. He has been identified by great police work by the FBI. So you can run, you can't hide. We are coming after you federally. If you assault a police officer, if you rob a store, if you loot, if you spit on a police officer, we're coming after you.
AG Pam Bondi. Elon publicly backing DJT's stance again on illegal immigration in California. He shared more posts criticizing Governor Newsom and LA Mayor Kami Bass for their handling of the riots. Now, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, she's urging Mexicans to avoid violence in LA. She urged people to stay peaceful. At the same time,
Mexicans in LA?
Yeah, that's what she. And I love this. At the same time, she promised her government has an unwavering commitment to the protection and defense of the human rights of Mexicans. Good. Sounds like a great place to go. They ought to try to visit.
Could you do that in Mexico
Go
City?
back.
I mean,
yeah. No,
any
I've been to
chance?
Mexico City. No. No way.
So I want to take a moment on this because the admissions that are coming from progressive leaders in the midst of all this is important to notice. So in this case, she's recognizing not Mexican Americans, not Americans of Mexican descent,
exactly
Mexicans.
Yes, Mexican
in Los Angeles. Okay,
right.
so
she knows
it's a
Mexican.
city that's not a country that they are citizens of. And then when Bass and Newsom come out there and are like, you know, when you bring in the Marines, you're going to escalate the violence. And I'm sitting there going, what? Well, I've been to plenty of protests, like conservative protests. There's marches for life in states like Colorado where the pro-life crowd has no power, and they believe the state is actively participating in the execution of kids on a daily basis. So think about the emotion there. And if you send in a bunch of Marines, well, then the pro-lifers would probably pass out cookies and lemonade. Right. Like
salute.
It's not a violent people. So when Bass and Newsom are going, well, you send in the Marines, it's going to get more violent. Aren't you admitting ridiculous. That the protesters are already violent?
Absolutely. They're ready to fight.
Perhaps we should just lay down.
Yeah, maybe that'd be a good idea.
That's what they want. They want the government, they want the shop owners, they want everyone to just lay down and let the illegal immigrants that are there, that the president of Mexico is already admitting are there, just have control.
Yep. And they want one person to get shot. So that can be the next person they could.
I will tell you. Did you see that video of the reporter getting shot by the rubber bullet?
I did not.
That
oh
one,
no, I did see
that. Yeah, that one.
Yes.
You could definitely blame the cop because you're like, what are you doing?
Right.
The reporters are just there talking, and you get shot in the back of the leg by a rubber bullet.
Yes.
Does that give any breath to the idea that the law enforcement may have increased the tension and the potential for violence on that day? If we saw in the video, the police officer directly turns at about a 40-degree angle and takes a shot below the waist at the reporter.
Right. So the proper response is go burn a Waymo?
No.
I mean,
that's not my question.
If you're a pro-lifer and you get accidentally shot by a rubber bullet, you're going to go home.
No, that's not my question analysis. And there was a person that I believe is working with an English outlet that actually had to have surgery, went into emergency surgery because of the non-lethal round and where it hit him. But what I'm asking,
that sucks.
But I know. But what I'm asking is, a minute ago we were like, no. The more military and the more presence doesn't escalate the violence. Is this an example of actions that can escalate the violence?
No.
It's a question.
But no, because what's the response? Go burn a Waymo? I mean, seriously.
So you're telling me that if law enforcement starts opening fire on the protesters, that doesn't increase the level of violence nor the potentiality for it?
No, well, they're there to protect the buildings and the officers.
And most times, though, that's been proven.
At them.
I know, but that's been proven. The reporter was. You saw the reporter. The reporter wasn't coming.
That was a mistake. That was a mistake. Nobody's denying that.
I know.
Nobody's denying that mistake. But you have to take into consideration the fact that the people they're dealing with are naturally violent to begin with.
But the law enforcement officer wasn't dealing with someone burning a Waymo. Wasn't dealing with someone encroaching on them. The reporter had her back to the officer. So this whole idea of the law enforcement people at that moment dealing with this problematic crowd, I disagree with based on how that law enforcement officer acted. And what I'm saying is that's the example that people are saying of, in these situations, individuals, even those that have sworn to serve and protect, that put on that uniform, can make bad decisions. And sometimes those bad decisions can lead to an increase in violence. This is just a minute ago.
Why does it have to lead to an increase in violence?
It's, again...
Because some cop pops off a rubber bullet accidentally, ergo... It's going to increase violence
amid the chaos and hell that's going on.
There wasn't any chaos and hell that was necessarily going on
All
around
of it
them.
is chaos and hell.
They
should be in their homes.
Blake, hang on a sec. No,
what are they doing on the streets?
But hang on a
at
sec.
night?
Yes, exactly.
Kurt Schlichter, just yesterday on the show that precedes us,
that was
said,
a great bite.
Yes, but he said that L.A. wasn't burning. That the vast majority of the city, went on with their day.
Huge city.
I know, but hang on. But this presentation, as if things were spinning out of control, is not necessarily accurate. And for years, we could get, even George Brockler could come on and talk about this, and I bet we could have some law enforcement people too. There is training that shows psychologically that when the law enforcement increases or ramps up the level of violence, it does have the ability to create more violence in the group, especially the idea of it spreading. And what that means is, if you bring in the military, you bring in law enforcement in one area, and you try to be forceful there and clamp down, what happens is, like water, it spreads out to the sides. It goes out to the side, and you end up having problems in other areas. This is an engagement,
like
but this is an engagement rule for. No, it's not.
Yes, it is absolutely blaming. You're doing that right now.
No, I'm not. I'm not blaming the cops. What I'm saying is, I'm saying that these type of actions can lead to increased violence. But what I'm also saying is that psychologically, there is a level of when you start increasing the response to the protests, that it increases more violence from the protesters.
We saw this in 2020. You try to back away, they just burn everything down.
Yeah, and I've seen numerous.
Trump is right to step up this.
I've seen numerous clips where the anchors are saying, "Where are the police? Where are the police? Where are the police?" Meanwhile, there's 5 or 6 cars burning. There's nothing there, so they're using that tactic as
5
well.
or 6 cars burning?
Yeah. I saw 5 or 6 cars.
I saw Lionel Lamos, but that I didn't necessarily.
Whatever they are.
Yeah, but those are cars.
I saw big flames. I saw smoke, and the anchors at Channel 7 ABC in L.A. saying, where are the police? Where are the cops? Why aren't they here? And we know why they're not there, because
why aren't they there?
They're trying to tamp it down, and they're somewhere else dealing with other crap that's going on a block away. I mean, if there were any leaders in that city or that state, they would say, "Hey, listen, people, stay at home, okay?
Right,
stay at home. Come out during the day, peaceful protests, but stop this." In the meantime, Maxine Waters and all these people are ginning it up. And I agree. Yep. I mean, you two things can be right at the same time. Yes, it was small. I agree with Schlichter. No doubt. It was small areas, tiny, whatever. At the same time, it was intense. It's paid for. They're trying to create.
We have no information it's paid for, but that's okay.
Okay. Well, you believe that if you want.
No, I understand.
Let me tell you something.
What's the memo? Where's the memo?
Right.
If you're going to make the allegation, why can't you prove it? Is that difficult? I understand the story that you've been running this morning about the Chinese guy, but you don't have anything connecting to them paying the protesters to be there and cause violence.
I know you want the receipts. I hear you.
Why isn't that important?
I'm just going with what Anna Paulina Luna said.
I know, but she doesn't have receipts either. Nobody's produced the receipts on that. So
here's the question I got for you guys.
So paid protesters, again, you got to prove that.
Okay. I don't think the passion would be there for the losers like that to fill their
backpacks out there
with bricks and stones and God only knows what else they have to be out there raising hell unless there was money involved.
Yep. Now, I've got a question. I've got a question for both of you guys. They're expecting protests tonight in Denver. Violence or not?
Depends. I mean, I think there's a chance for violence.
Depends if a cop shows up?
No, it depends. It depends on the group, depends on what happens, depends on who's there. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not discounting the idea, nor have I never said there aren't agitators, nor are there bad actors inside there. What I'm not saying is that they are paid by George Soros or somebody else to go in there and to create that type of a problem. That's the issue. Yes, there are bad actors. There are people that want this thing to get off the chain and get out of control.
There are a lot of bad actors.
We'll see what, I think it's a minority of the groups that show up.
All right, does it help Trump if there's violence in Denver tonight?
Yeah, I think it helps his narrative. Yeah, which for me would be the idea of why you would not want to do that if you are against Trump. If you're showing up tonight to be against Trump and this is an anti-Trump, then the worst thing to do is to actually commit the violence, because then you're proving the case.
That's what they want. That's exactly what they want.
But who's they, though? Who's the they you're referring to? Is that the
they
the being
left,
the
communists,
Trump? Or is it the
communists,
left?
the left,
but,
yeah.
Tell me that. Let's walk through that for a sec. Let's walk through that for a sec. So if the left wants this extra violence, to what end?
They want an angry conservative who hates seeing Mexican flags being waved on our soil, which is horrible, and protesting the government that welcomes them. They want some guy who's probably not listening to a lot of this and sees that and says, you know what, screw this. I work, 12, 15 hours a day. I work hard, have kids, pay my taxes, and I'm looking at this and someone's going to shoot somebody and kill somebody. That's exactly what they want.
I think you're giving them way too much reason. TikTok is now featuring these videos. I retweeted one of these libs just screaming their heads off, right? Like so angry over what Trump's doing with these deportations in Los Angeles and stuff. There's not an ounce of reason here. There is just emotion, and they've been ginned up with decades of government-run education that believes there's oppressors versus oppressed. So they are going to stand on the side of the oppressed and show up at these events and scream their heads off. I mean, you've seen all these interviews I've done. There's not a lot of logic or even another level of thinking. It's all emotion.
Have you seen the alleged Kava employees? Have you seen that? I love Kava, by the way.
What is Kava? What is
it's like what was like a Chipotle or whatever. It's a restaurant. Yeah, it's really good. So there's a couple of employees, quote unquote, and they are just dropping the N-bomb. I'm guessing they're Hispanic. I mean, they look like they are. Could be white, but I'm not sure. But they're dropping the M-bomb every other word on this black police officer. And they're saying that he went into Kava and wanted a discount on his food because he's a police officer. But you need to see the video. It is horrific. I mean, just these are the type of people that they're paying. These are...
But you have
allegedly, which I have no proof of.
I've talked to paid protesters before. Maybe not. I mean, I haven't been to L.A. in the last 24 hours, but the same guy would show up at all these protests, and some Christians were nice enough to take him out to lunch one time, and he would scream, terrible things, but they got him to go out to lunch and have a conversation. He's like, "Oh yeah, no, I get paid."
Yeah, he just like that. No, I get paid. Right. I love it.
But there's not necessarily a W-2 coming with it.
Yeah. Well, allegedly, it's over $6,000, maybe $12,000 a week for some of these guys. And as passionate as they are, I would not be surprised. All right, we got a little hockey here.
And again, in the slot, Rodriguez for Haney scores!
Stanley Cup Finals, Game 3. Panthers beat the Oilers 6-1. They lead 2-1. Giants at the Rockies tonight, 6:40 first pitch. 54 in Sedalia, 56 in Brighton, 57 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your KNUS forecast for the Denver metro area calls for a mild start to this Tuesday. We'll be looking at temperatures into the mid and upper 50s. A little bit on the hot side today. Readings above average today and really the next few days as we'll be in the mid and upper 80s. Sunny and dry this Tuesday, near 60 for a low tonight. Morning sunshine with building afternoon clouds and some hit and miss storms Wednesday through Friday.
Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free, no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. I'm meteorologist Mark Huer in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, the Denver branch of the Party for Socialism and Liberation is helping host a protest today, an emergency protest from Los Angeles to Denver. Ice out. 5:30 down at the Colorado State Capitol. In response, the administration has let me back up here. The people of Los Angeles have taken a courageous stand against Trump's reign of terror, targeting immigrant families. In response, the administration has falsely labeled those taking to the streets as rioters. Yeah, right. Yeah, all the cop cars that got beaten with rocks and fireworks. By the way, when they say fireworks, you might think it's like a sparkler or a bottle rocket. No, these are commercial-grade mortars that were fired at the cop cars and called in thousands of National Guard soldiers for a crackdown. The people are not deterred. Today, Tuesday, June 10th, 5:30 p.m. at the Colorado State Capitol for an emergency solidarity protest. This could be a turning point where the entire working class unites to push back Trump's efforts to shred our basic rights and dignity. While I think what Blake was saying, where they'd want someone to shoot or something like that to kind of spur nationwide protests, I think that would, in their minds, be a benefit. That's what they want. They want to see conservatives respond. But ultimately, this is just socialist, communist stuff. I run into it all the time. The communists are always at these rallies, and they believe that there are oppressors and there are oppressed, and it is their duty to stand with the oppressed against the oppressors. And so within that framework, they just put different entities and issues. That's why one day they can be protesting Israel and supporting Palestine because it's oppressors versus oppressed, or oil companies against the environment because it's oppressors versus oppressed, or ICE against illegal immigrants because it's oppressors versus oppressed. That's the framework they work in, and so they just swap out the issues. Then they go on to make the same post I just read in Spanish below it. So, Bill, this is a question I got for you. Mike Johnston is desperately trying to get people down to the city of Denver. You saw the video where he's running through the 16th Street Mall. Look at all the great things we have. Lo and behold, less than a week later, that socialists and communists are calling for emergency protests. What do you think Mike's thinking today?
It's not necessarily what he wants, and the thing that worries me is it's the late in the day protest. That worries me based on the timing, because again, as it gets closer to dark, as everybody's father said, nothing good happens between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. Nothing that is positive normally happens at that time. And so the fact that it's starting up later and leads into the night, I think is problematic. And I'm wondering if, as you're talking about, are they setting it up for some potential violence, because it's the time in which many of the bad actors would come out, paid or not. And I still disagree that they're out there being paid for it. But
on that point, by the way, Andrew going, I would gladly take money to protest, even for stuff I don't care about. Where do I sign up?
Yeah, I know. Again, if it was such a big cottage industry, we'd be able to see it a lot more. If it was something that everything saw there. And again, that's you'd have to account for the cash and a bunch of other stuff. But oh well, we can set that aside. But it makes for good radio and for good theories inside of it, because then it explains why all those people show up. Not that they disagree with me, that they're paid. So it's not that these people find things different than I am, or these people view things differently than I do. They're just paid. So it's a rationalization in my mind as far as the paid protesters many times. I think it's a problem. I'm not certain. I don't know. Well, I'm uncertain why the communists and the socialists want to get in on this one. I think they're probably trying to need some help with some branding, because this is popular with the left at this point. But again, starting up the protest at night, I think that is leading itself just to be problematic. Is do it during the day. That everybody does have time off. I understand we want to get higher turnout if we do it later in the day, but you're starting it like at 5. That means I got to go downtown during drive time. Please stop that. I disagree when you're like, we'll get more people when we do it at night. When you're asking people to come down and you're going to start the thing while while drive time traffic is happening. No, you're not. No, I disagree. I disagree with that idea. If it was really that important, you'd do it during the day or do it on the weekend when the people would have more free time. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how this goes. But I also, Breadman earlier was asking whether or not there would be the National Guard deployed inside of Colorado. He was betting maybe later this week. I think right now it's very unlikely. I think it's unlikely that we're going to see the National Guard be deployed anywhere else other than LA at this point. I just don't see any other indications. I'm not saying that the Trump administration doesn't want to. I'm not saying they're not willing to. I'm just saying that based on what we're seeing across the country, I don't think they can make the case. So we'll see. I'll hold my breath, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of violence, but I don't think it's going to be huge. I'd be surprised if it's really big, but we'll talk to you in the morning. We'll see. I don't know.
So what's interesting to me is Los Angeles, in many ways, is like illegal Alienville. Like, it is the center part of where most illegal aliens have gone in this country compared to other communities. It's like the biggest population of illegal aliens. And if you really believe that Trump's engaging in a reign of terror against these, the protests don't seem super big. I mean, there's definitely damage taking place in Los Angeles. I saw videos of an Apple store being rioted, 5 self-driving Waymo taxis were vandalized, multiple storefronts, damaged, ransacked, Jordan Studio 23, Adidas, a T-Mobile outlet, retail break-ins, graffiti, public property, and then you saw all the burned out patrol cars, electric scooters, crushed street fixtures, smashed billboards, lots of stuff like that happening. But Trump taking it right to the center. Like, he's not working his way around. He's like, Los Angeles, we're going to send the National Guard. Los Angeles, we're going to send the Marines. I mean, there's some estimates 1 million illegal immigrants in that community. Yeah, I mean, I'll be interested to see what happens in Colorado today because from my read on all this, Trump's strong response has tampered down a lot of this, especially if you put it in light of what happened in 2020 and how that blew up across the country. And I think Trump learned, because he was president in the summer of 2020, learned from that and is not going to allow it to happen again. We'd love to hear from you. Join the conversation, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Maybe tonight will just be a peaceful protest. Maybe just folks out. I've been to plenty of progressive peaceful protests in the last few months. Days Without an Immigrant, anti-Trump protests. The nicest people, besides the March for Life, which is like a bunch of Catholic kids, but the teachers' protest was relatively peaceful, entirely peaceful outside the Capitol there. And actually, good conversation. That was one of the more enjoyable conversation ones.
My prediction is the longer into the evening it goes, the more likely we are going to see sparks of violence. So the longer that it goes, the later that the clock gets, the more likely you're going to see people for a variety of reasons. One, because it's just dark and that's when bad things happen. 2, it gives time for the agitators to get down there and to make things happen. And 3, just because of the time frame that people get down there, they get stressed, they get upset, and whatever reason as far as them being inside a cauldron of whoever's yelling what nonsense. Yeah. So the longer the protest goes on, I think the more likely there is for violence.
And, the mayor's desperately trying to deal with a sales tax deficit, sales tax coming from people who actually come downtown Denver. And if it's on fire, you're not going to want to visit, especially those with disposable income, not going to be that interested in visiting a city on fire. So join the conversation, 303-696-1971. Are you going to stay away from downtown Denver today? Do you think it's going to be big? Or will just be kind of a passing protest like we've had just about every weekend anyways? 720-819-5115 is the text line, 720-819-5115. All right, let's talk advanced hair restoration. Guys, if you're losing your hair and desire to have it back, then Advanced Hair Restoration has the easiest guaranteed solution. Their simple one-day treatment offers life-changing results. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's not magic, but close to it. They put hair where you need it the most and bam, it grows. It's actually science. Advanced Hair has it all. Top-rated Dr. Tanya Paul's modern technology. And best of all, you get your own natural hair that begins regrowing the very next day. Advanced Hair even guarantees it will grow for life. So schedule your free consultation now. 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver now 2 years in a row and has changed the lives of tens of thousands of people. So don't wait. Check out their before and afters online for yourself, 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. Advancedhair.com. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking planned protests today in Denver against ICE, 5:30, state capitol. Be careful. Are you expecting violence down there? Let's go to the phone lines. Chris Lakewood. Good morning, Chris. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Good morning, everybody. It's been a while since I called. If you could please refrain from responding until I finish so I can listen. On the other end, my question is, why are we defending people who are breaking the law initially? My grandfather was illegal. That's not the issue with me. It is my understanding that these people that are being rounded up are breaking the law, committing crimes here. That's what's being said. I understand everybody wants to go to Home Depot and get cheap labor for their granite countertops and their illustrious houses over here. Everybody's broken the law. You go to the casino, you win money, you're not claiming it on taxes. Understood. I just don't understand why we think it's okay to pledge, and I'm saying this as a Mexican, but more importantly as an American with, Mexican lineage. Why is it okay to live in a country so free, so great as the United States, but pledge allegiance to another country, specifically for Californians and, those who are going to that, protest downtown? This is America. Men and women have died for our rights, and I think people are living in an alternate reality. But I just wanted to pose that question to you guys, so thanks for having my call.
Chris, sure appreciate it. Chris's line will be open 303-696-1971. I think it discounts their argument entirely when they're standing on top of burned out police cars hoisting a Mexican and waving a Mexican flag. I mean, like, what do you think that communicates to Americans? That you're the type of people that shouldn't be here. That's what it says. So I'll tell you what they say because I've interviewed them. They believe that the government is targeting people because of their nationality, people like Mexicans or Venezuelans. And so they're standing in solidarity with those nationalities that might be here in this country but are being targeted by the Trump administration. I think it sends a totally wrong message. Standing on top of a burned out police car that you damaged, waving a Mexican flag, sends the message to everybody else that you are the exact type of person that Donald Trump should get out of here. All right, Chris, appreciate the call. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710. KNUS changed the flag to a Broncos flag, and it's a Super Bowl celebration. Just saying.
All right, Bill, over under on Gavin Newsom getting arrested by Trump.
Oh, no.
I don't think it happens.
No, I don't think it happens
You
either.
know why?
Yeah, why? Tell me.
You get
What do
arrested, you end up being president.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the other part is that I think the best thing that Newsom did was the idea of, okay, bring it. Go right ahead. And now I went back and I listened to the interview and the stuff with Homan. He did not directly say that. He implied that if you're going to continue to do this, we will arrest you. So he didn't say, we're going to arrest Gavin Newsom. So there is some implications here. But smart on Gavin to just say.
Really? I think
completely.
He's sitting there like crying in these videos. And he's like, what about the kids? What about the kids? You're here bullying the kids. And he just looks so weak.
Here's the thing, though.
If I was Trump, I'd like, dude, make those every day. I'm not going to. Mugshots right now in this country, mugshots make you president.
But here's the thing. Now, the kids thing, I think he was with, oh, God, I forgot his name. But that's a liberal influencer who was doing the when he was talking about the kids and breaking down. But again, who's his audience? He's not talking to MAGA. He's talking to Democrats and he's talking to the unaffiliated. And he only needs a small sliver of those unaffiliateds, and he can change the game as far as an election. So that's all he's doing. That's who he's playing to. That's his audience. He's not talking to MAGA.
I don't think that message works at all when you're burning cop cars and Waymos and you're throwing rocks as cops drive by.
But did you hear the beginning of his statement? The beginning of his statement was, don't burn the cars. That's illegal. You should be punished. That's crime. At the very beginning of his statement, the first thing he started
also saying it's not happening that much. It doesn't play
based
well.
On the number,
I think the Democrats are playing this thing totally wrong.
The first thing he did is those people need to be punished, which was smart because that's not what AOC is saying, not what Maxine Waters is saying. Did you see Kamala Harris? She was on, understand. Shut up. Okay, that's crime. And you should be able to, a reasonable person, regardless of their political affiliation, should be able to say, you burn a car, that's illegal, you should be punished, whether you're here in the country legally or illegally, whether you're a paid protester or not a paid protester. That's irrelevant. And it was very intelligent strategically for Newsom to lead with that. The very first thing he did is crime, bad, punish them, and then he got all wishy-washy. Smart. I mean, for who he's talking to, for the messaging, that's smart. That is a very smart message. He's playing this thing better than most of the Democrats.
I think Trump is just going to let him go out there. Continue to cry in front of the camera, Gavin Newsom. But what a interesting moment in American history where you have to second guess whether or not putting somebody in cuffs and a mugshot might actually lead them to becoming president of the United States.
The idea of governors daring the presidency to arrest them.
Him.
Yeah. This is
never a dull moment. Goodness. All right, Vic Vella's live in studio. He's going to be next. We got a great program coming up Thursday. You're not going to want to miss it. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is KNUS.